Hello YouTube, welcome back. In this video I'm going to be making a jacket mold on top of my silicone and clay sculpture. This jacket mold is pretty much going to be helping to maintain the shape that I originally had of my sculpture by holding the silicone in place and giving it a rigid solid thing to hold on to. I first wanted to do a one-part mold, which means I didn't have to split it apart, but because it has so many registration keys and it just seems, I don't know if it's really thick or not in some areas, but I'm going to end up doing a two-part mold. It's something I didn't want to do, but I think just for the time and effort I put into it, I might as well just do it. So for the mold anyways, I'm going to be using polyester resin and fiberglass cloth, just the regular straight Bondo stuff you can pick up at Home Depot or wherever you're at. I want to use other materials such as plasti paste, but I just didn't have it, and I'm pretty familiar with fiberglass resin. I've used it before on several projects. I will say though that stuff is really stinky and it's really bad for you, so you want to make sure you want to use a respirator. I got this respirator from Harbor Freight. It's not entirely rated for fiberglass. It will help a lot, but the stuff they say to use like a respirator that pumps oxygen into your face mask and that kind of stuff, but I just don't have the money for that. So instead I have my doors open and I have a fan here to help blow a lot of the excess fumes out. For the first part of the mold though, I will be using this stuff, I call it dog puke. It's an invention of my own. If you guys want to know, I'll make a video on how to make that stuff. It's pretty simple. But what that layer is going to do is going to cover up some of the registration keys and give them a more rounded shape. That way it'll be easier for me to go back in later and put the fiberglass cloth on top of that. Because fiberglass cloth, it doesn't like certain shapes and it tends to stick up, and that's where you get a lot of needles and you have to do a lot of sanding and cleanup work afterwards. So I want to try to minimize that in one easy go. I'll probably have to end up having to do some cleanup work afterwards anyways, but it won't be as much. So for the rest of the video, I'm going to be narrating, just like in my previous one, because I'm going to be wearing the respirator. You won't be able to hear what I'm saying. So anyways guys, enjoy, and if you have any questions, please put them down below in the comments. I'll try and get back to you. And awesome guys, thank you again for watching. Alright, so unfortunately my camera wasn't filming when I did the first part of this, but you can go ahead and skip to the 4-minute mark if you want to see where I put the dog puke on. Again, if you want to see how I do that, just put down in the comments. I'll eventually make a video on how to make that stuff, but I probably won't be working with fiberglass anymore. It was kind of a long process. But anyways, for the jacket mold part, I already had some fiberglass cloth, not the fiberglass mat. You want to use the fiberglass cloth. It's a little bit easier to work with and it doesn't make as much of a mess. But anyways, I had already gone ahead and cut out some strips of different sizes and different shapes, just to kind of help the process along, because you don't want to be doing this while you're putting the mold on. And so yeah, basically what you do is you just put a very thin layer of fiberglass resin on the mold, and then you go back on and put the cloth on top, and then you saturate it again with more resin. And then you just build up layers and just try and fill up all the gaps you can. As you can see, there's kind of some air pockets in the mold itself, but it doesn't really matter. This thing doesn't have to be like structurally sound that well. It just has to hold its shape for a few pulls anyways until the mold itself wears out. So I'm just going back and forth and just trying to fill in some little gaps as much as I can. Try and make the edges really strong, because I'm going to go back and I'm going to sand them down, but just to make sure that they have a good thickness to them. That way, you know, they can hold up against different kinds of abuse, such as me dropping them and whatever. It's probably going to happen. Alright, so now you can kind of see I've already finished one part. I had built a barrier down the middle of the mask using some of that plastilina clay and some tin foil. And I thought it would work because I did some small scale testing where I had put some fiberglass resin on some tin foil, and it didn't stick to it. I could peel it off, but it was, you know, it held up a little bit, and I was able to paint on top of it with the resin, and it stuck to it before it was cured. And after it was cured, it popped right off. But in retrospect, it was kind of a bad idea because the tin foil and the clay actually stuck to the resin a little bit more than I thought it would. And I even applied some mold release, as you can see right now, and it's still stuck. So with this dog puke stuff, it's pretty cool because it's pretty much just a very thick resin. Using the fiberglass resin and some other materials I got, it's able to fill a lot of those big gaps between the registration keys. Like I said before, fiberglass cloth is very tricky. It doesn't like certain shapes. Anything that has like a corner, it likes to pop out. It doesn't like to stick that well. So this coat is pretty much just to make the mold round around the registration key, so I could go back and put the fiberglass resin cloth on top of that. And I'm being very careful at this point not to spill on the mold as well as my mold stand. That's why I have the tinfoil below it. And also I want to make sure I don't join the two halves together accidentally. So I'm making sure I don't go over the sides, over the top of it, so it doesn't join to the other end of it. And this stuff does smell pretty bad. I mean, even with the respirator on, I still got a little bit of a headache, and yeah, it's just really dangerous stuff. I want to play with Plasti Paste, which is another product by Smooth On. I've seen some videos on that, and it looks like a lot of fun to work with. And as you can see, since this is the second half of my mold, I was a little more used to what to expect when it came to applying the cloth. As you can see, there's not as many air pockets, and it's a little bit more kind of like more uniformly shaped in certain areas. It's like a little bit, I feel like this second half was a little bit thicker than the first half, but it really doesn't matter, because I mean, with these silicone molds, you could probably get maybe 20 max pulls out of them, so I've heard. I'm not too sure. I don't think I'll be using that many. This is just more of an experiment, and just to get it done before Comic-Con, so I can kind of have a finished product by then. But yeah, I've done some cosplay helmets and a few other things with fiberglass cloth and resin, and it's always such a long process, and it makes such a mess, and I really want to find a better alternative. Also, too, it really helps to get a box of those chip brushes. I get them all from Harbor Freight. I'm not endorsed by them in any kind of way. I kind of wish I was, but that's just the place where I can find the cheapest materials. And anyways, those chip brushes, they come in handy for more than what you think, even for applying the resin and a few other things. But you kind of run through them. I still have a box. I have like 2 left, and it's lasted me like almost 6 months, I'd say. And they're just cheap disposable brushes. And right now I'm putting holes. I bought some bolts and stuff from a box that I had got from Harbor Freight, and some wing nuts. And I'm using those to kind of hold the mold together, the two halves together. I'm also using washers too, because it helps make it a little bit more of a secure fit, and it won't like crack the mold. And this was actually kind of a challenge to get apart. It didn't really stick together, but it seemed like there was a vacuum on the inside, because I couldn't pull it apart real easily. But once I got it free, it was good to go. And I would have really refrained from using extra clay as a barrier, because it sticks to the resin in a way, and it's kind of hard to clean up afterwards. But anyways, I'm going to put everything back together here, and I have another video coming up very shortly after this one about the mold cleanup process. It's not that long, and I didn't really want to include it in this one because this video kind of got long on me too. One thing I did notice though is that the silicone does suck some of the oils out of the monster clay. So you kind of want to do this very quickly. I took my time when doing this, and I probably should have moved a little bit faster, but the clay went back to normal, and I'm just melting it down and it's back to normal again. So, alright guys, thanks again for watching, and check out the mold cleanup process if you want to. Give me a subscribe or give me a like. Appreciate it, and thank you guys for watching.